record on this computer. Okay, cool. All right, let's go ahead and fork and clone if you guys haven't already. I think I forked. No, I haven't forked it yet. Go ahead and fork it. And who was it? Alex that told me to do Git Kraken? I started doing it, Alex. I'm like a Git Kraken boy now. It's what I use. It's my jam.
It's the literal bomb. Like it makes it so easy.
Okay, we'll clone. I'm gonna clone it to this Objective-C folder I have. There we go. Okay, cool. And we're literally just gonna go through the README and tackle each step all together. And that way you guys kind of have a streamlined way of knowing how things are supposed to be wrote. But this isn't perfect code. This is actually code that I got from a previous TL. I'm not gonna say that his code is like the right way to go about it, but it does the job, and I feel like it's gonna be familiar to you based on what you've done so far. So if we encounter errors later down the road, just know that like this isn't the perfect solution. Because I mean, when I did this project, I did not finish and I did not get to a working point. So you guys can probably guess who taught my class that week, probably as well too. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So let me open up the folder here, if I can find it. There it is. And documents, that's what it's called. Cool, okay, yeah, there's not even a starter project, so we're gonna have to make one. That's totally great. Okay, so go to Xcode, get a new project started.
Are we doing unit tests on this project?
I'm not going to. You can if you want to, but as far as like us doing it together, we're not gonna worry about it. I'm gonna call it documents. Make sure you got Objective-C for your language and Storyboard. I mean, if you do Objective-C, I don't think you can do Swift UI. Yeah, you can. Yeah, and then we're not gonna do core data. It's a stretch goal. You can totally go back and do it if you want to, but I mean, I'm not confident enough to do core data with you guys in Objective-C. All right, and then I'm gonna throw it into the repo that I've cloned down. And that is that one right there. Cool. Okay, so let's try to do meaningful commits as we go through this so that like as we tackle certain steps, we can work through that and then your code's updated. It's got good practice as far as like when you should be committing. So I'm gonna stage the changes and then our first commit that we're gonna do is we're just gonna create initial Xcode project. And then I'll just go ahead and push that up. You guys might be doing it in terminal, you might be doing it in GitHub Desktop or Git Kraken, but I just think making commits is gonna be good. Cool. All right, so let's start to chat about this project. So it's a documents project. The user's gonna be able to create documents, and then while they write them, they're gonna be able to see this word count adjust as it goes. So we'll make a category today that's going to kind of extend on the NSString class, and that's what's going to kind of power a method that checks how many words are inside of this. It's going to update this label to show how many words the user's typed out, which will be really cool. So we'll start off first with the storyboard. It's going to be a master detail layout. Does anyone know what it means by master detail? You guys have made a lot of master detail apps before. Someone explain to me what that is.
Like where you have one thing like a collection view or a table view, and then it transfers over into a detail page. So it's like you have all the things and then you have it simplified to like one thing of those things. Exactly.
It's a type of app architecture. And like, if you look through your phone, you guys will find so many master detail apps. Your contacts app is a great representation of this. I would say a calendar app is also a really good version of a master detail because there's some sort of collection, like Cece said, and you can tap certain things to get more information about them. So that's kind of what we're going for here. We're going to make a table view. And then once we go into the table view, we'll be able to come and create a new document, go back to the master view, select a document, and then see it, kind of what information was in it. Like, I think this is going to press it here in the GIF. Oh no, it deleted it. That's fine. All right, so let's rock this. We're going to start with the UI table view controller and embed it in a navigation controller and set that to be the initial view. And I'm literally going to go through step by step and not skip any of these points, just because I feel like if you guys have questions as we hit each one, this will be the best way to get them answered. All right, so main storyboard. Go ahead and delete that initial one. And then let's pull out a table view controller. And then we're going to go ahead and embed this in a nav controller. And then nav controller needs to be the initial. Cool. Okay, we're at a good starting point for that first step. And this is what I'd recommend, especially this week while you guys are encountering really, really new material. Go through each bullet point or numbered list, I guess it is, and then just scroll down when you hit the next one. And that way you're going to know, like, hey, I completed this. So next thing, create a CocoaTouch class of the table view controller scene and set the scenes class to it. Whoops, that's not the right one. Cool. All right, so I'm just going to go to the file navigator, click, make sure I'm in like the project folder, Command N, and then we'll do the CocoaTouch. And up until now, we've been doing a lot of NSObject because Objective-C classes rely on them becoming these next step objects. But here we're just going to do a normal UI table view controller. And we'll call it documents table view controller. Documents table view controller. Cool. Normally I would focus on like organizing our code a little bit more on the left-hand side here, but maybe we'll do that closer to the end just to kind of clean it up. And I'll tell you guys why as we start to write. So we'll go ahead and class this guy. Documents. Okay, I already did one thing wrong. Can you guys tell me what it is? As far as objective code is speaking, Objective-C code. Prefixes. Good, Cece. I mean, like this app would still probably run and work the way that it needs to without prefixes, but it's best practice to do prefixes. So, I mean, we don't really have to do a whole ton. We can just delete these and move them to the trash. And now I'm going to make a new one.
Yeah, I like how he showed us that class prefix on the project.
Yeah, that's
You're welcome.
There, and that makes things easy.
So you guys name yours whatever you want them to be, but I'm just going to call mine MB. They don't have to be 3 syllable or 3 letters. It can be just 2 if you want it to. And like I said, the project would work fine even if you didn't do prefixes. But I mean, you don't want conflictions in your code files. So anyways, I'm going to make mine MB. Create that. And then we'll go ahead and class this. Okay, so I misnamed this one. Now let's go ahead and do MB table view controller. So whenever you guys delete files and it says, do you want to remove the reference or do you want to move it to trash? Sometimes if you click remove reference, the actual, in the project navigator, it can still exist, or it may not look like it still exists, but like in the project, it still does. But when you move it to trash, it completely extracts it. So like if I hadn't changed this subclass and I just removed the reference, I could encounter all kinds of errors just because the file still kind of lives in the project, even if we can't see it. So just make sure you always hit move to trash for those ones. And then these view controller files, we don't need those because we deleted that view controller. So we'll move those to trash. Okay, cool. So what is going on here? Why do I have 2 open? That's so strange. Okay. That was really weird. Okay, cool. And then the other thing too is whenever you guys first drag out a table view controller, and another thing too, you guys hit Command Build a lot, Command B, and then your project will run faster when you do actually need to simulate it. So every time you do something new or a couple lines of code, just hit a Command B and it will help things run faster. So we need to prototype sell this. Let's go into the view here and just make sure that we want to use just like a basic cell. Let me double check what it looks like when it saves. I'm pretty sure it just says the name of the document.
Now that's the word count, so.
Yep, it's a subtitle. So we'll do a, excuse me, we'll do a subtitle view. So I'm going to click on the cell, and then we're going to change its type to subtitle. And then for reuse identifier, let's go ahead and put document cell. And then if you click on this content view here, we can kind of go in and give it some more explicit information. For now, I'm just going to call it document title. And then I'll say this one is our number. I'll just say word count, actually. That way, when we're dragging those outlets, we won't have any confusion about what they are. Cool. So on number 2, create a CocoaTouch class, and then set the scenes class to it, set the cell's identifier, and its style is subtype. Oh, okay, we skipped a couple of steps. Awesome, we got them done. Okay, you guys good with me so far? This is pretty basic stuff. Okay, now we're gonna add an add bar button item to the table view controller. Mark that out. And then we're gonna change the system item, so let's add. Cool. So if we got there, we've got an add bar button item, and then it wants us to add a UI view controller scene with a couple of properties. Okay, so go ahead and drag out a UI view controller. Let's make a segue from this guy to this guy. We'll just do a show. Awesome. And then I already know off the top of my head that we're going to want some kind of done button or something to dismiss this view when it's over with. So let's go ahead and add the navigation item. We've got a title here. And then we can go ahead and add a bar button item in the top right that can be our like done button. And then for the title, we can just call it new document. So when the user comes in the first time and they want to make a new document, it'll say this. And then when we come back to an actual selected created document, we can update this title to say whatever the title of the document is, which will be pretty easy. Cool. And then it wanted us to do a couple of properties, some UIs, so that we can see what is actually going to be input in here. So we've got a label to display the amount of words. We've got a text field to enter the title of the document, and then a text view. We already took care of this bar button item. Oh, I guess it wants us to do save. We can do that. So a label, a text field, and a text view. And I'll scroll up a little bit so we can see what these are going to look like. Probably looks like a stack view. We've got this guy located in the middle, and then looks like the constraints are the exact same probably all the way through, which is, it'll be pretty easy to make. So let's go change this system item to save, just so we're congruent with what the assignment wants us to do. All right, let's do a label first. And then the label, I'm just gonna call it number of words first. Let's see when we go back in and see what it says. 0 words, okay. Let's just have it default to say 0 words, and then that way it can be updated from the start. Okay, got 0 words. Okay, and then let's do a text field. We won't worry about constraining it. We're just gonna put these all in a stack view here in a sec, and then we'll worry about that. And then let's do some placeholder text. So let's say enter the document's title, maybe. Enter the document's title. Oh, it looks a little small. And that'll get reconstructed when we're there, so we don't have to worry about that. But and then let's add a text view. And I'm just going to delete this lorem ipsum. It's not super intuitive. I mean, this has a border around it, so I think we probably should go in and make a border around the text field. Sorry, the text view. Let me see if there is a border that I can do right here. That's horizontally. I wonder how they got that border around it.
Maybe programmatically.
Probably. Huh. Well, what we can do instead is let's just click on this view controller and we'll click on the view itself. And then we'll set the view's background to just be like a light gray color. It might not be the prettiest thing ever, but you know, that way we can tell what we're clicking on to type stuff into. Okay, cool. I don't like how small this is. Let's go ahead and make this maybe like to 25. It's probably good. And then let's go put these guys all in a stack view. And then once we reconstrain the stack view, we should be able to get what we want out of it. So I'm going to do 20. I'm going to just do 20 on all sides. Just kind of the system basic. Okay, got a little funky there. Okay, so we've got a couple of issues here. Does anyone want to talk me through how we would fix this auto layout issue?
Distribution?
Yep. So you're going to have to pick on the specific thing that's squishing everything else. And we're going to have to deal with this content hugging issue that's going on. So if it has a higher priority, then it's going to squish other things. If it has a lower priority, it won't get squished. So it's usually out of 250 for each of these aspects. So what we can do is we can tell that the document title is getting super long, and then our text view is getting super squished. Let me check the stack view and see if we can't just change it to fill. There we go. So we filled that out. That looks good. Words, I want that to be centered. Do you guys see how I did that? Is that too fast?
Yeah, could you redo that?
Yeah, so I clicked on the stack view. This is before things were all kind of going everywhere they needed to go. And I clicked the alignment to fill rather than just being center. Because center kind of was like squished. So I changed it to fill, so it filled up the available space.
Thanks.
And then this label up here, it was on the left alignment. I just changed it to center alignment, so it's in the middle. Okay, so the real issue with these guys here is the distribution of priority. So obviously whatever's going on with this one feels like it has a higher priority, and so it feels like it needs to take up the available space. Which of these three aspects do we want to have the highest priority? Bottom right, the text view. So what we can do is here in our content hugging priority, we want to make sure that these things, whatever is the most important aspect that we want to show off, has the higher priority. So I usually just monkey with these a little bit, but for now what I'm going to do, because I'm not entirely sure which one needs to be which yet, I'm just going to raise it by 1 point for all of the aspects down here on the content hugging and content compression resistance. And now I'm going to come into these other ones and just make sure that they have a lower priority. So we'll go down by 1 for each of these guys here. That should have done it. Oh, this is probably why. Ha. What? It even squished our words. That was so dumb. Higher priority. You have a higher priority. What? Well, it did the.
Jill, did you check your distribution under alignment for your stack view?
Yeah, it should be fill.
Okay. I have it to mine fill proportionately.
Ha.
And it worked okay-ish.
That's it. That was the one.
Okay.
This is still kind of ugly though. Let's go in and see what we can monkey with this. Oh, there we go. That was right. CC was on it, so it's filled proportionally. So auto layout is its own can of worms to open up. Basically what I like to do is I like to select the item that I know is the most important, in this case the text view, make sure that that's at least 1 more than the system default, and then I just make sure my other items are 1 less, and then that will usually fix it. And then in the case that like what we just encountered, what Cece said, your distribution needs to fill proportionately, meaning that whatever has priority gets its proportional space filled with it. So you should be good there. You guys good on that so far? Rad. Okay, awesome. Last thing that's a part of this storyboard kind of fill out is we need to create the CocoaTouch class and then create the outlets and actions that we'll need. And so this will be a great point to talk about when and where do you put things in Objective-C for as far as outlets go. So let's go ahead and make that file. So we got CocoaTouch class, and this is going to be a UI view controller. And then I'm going to call it MV for mine, whatever your name or your prefix is there. And then go ahead and make it. Okay, so what we're going to do first, we're going to play around with it to see if there is a certain class that defaults to let you drag outlets to. And then we'll talk about why maybe you wouldn't want to use that default drag. So let's class this guy here. This is my MV view controller, not my table view controller. Oh, I should have called it documents, but I mean, we're here. We did what we did. We can refactor in a little bit if we want to, but I mean, we're only going to have two views. We're going to have a table view and a detail view. And as long as we keep those separate as far as table view and view controller, we'll be all right. Okay, cool. So I'm going to open up them both, just option click. And let's start with the H file. So this is my viewcontroller.h file. I'm going to scroll over so we can see our document there. So these you can kind of delete, this ns assume non-nil. Just delete those. We haven't really talked about what they are or why they're important. I've never had to use them. You guys might have to use them someday, but not something to worry about right away. So let's just try. We know we're going to want to make an outlet to this label because it's going to change depending on when the user inputs text into the text view. So if I drag over, I can definitely put an outlet into the .h file. Totally can. If I open the .m file, whoops, sorry. If I open the .m file, it also will let me apparently. Oh, it's because there's already an interface. Ooh, that's cool. I don't think it's ever done that for me before. Did you guys get an @ interface at the top of your .m file? Oh, okay, maybe that's a new thing because I think before it used to just come with implementation and end back when I learned Objective-C. So that's nice. So if you see, it has to be declared in the interface. And this is kind of like the place where things exist in the file, not necessarily where things change in the file. So just to kind of recap, who can tell me the difference between what a .h file is and a .m file?
I feel like from my understanding, the .h file is where you like declare the properties that you're going to use in your .m file, but the .m file is where you like everything that happens on the screen goes.
Yes. I like to think of it as like .m is the make it happen file. If you're going to do something, it's going to happen in the .m. If you're going to want things to be in the header or like kind of like a theme or an idea, we're going to put it in the .h file. There's also one big specific difference between the two files that deals with availability. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? I think we talked about this on Monday a bit. So the
private versus public.
Exactly. So the .h file is a public, it's a public file, and the .m file is private. So it really depends on how you guys want to use your outlets and your properties that you've declared. Maybe you do have a shared property that you want to be shared throughout the entire project. Generally, I feel like most properties are going to be declared privately because they're going to change within the view. So what we're going to do, and just kind of a good general rule of thumb, is if you have an interface here, you can always make one if it wasn't already there. But in our .m file, we're in our .m file up here. In our .m file, that's where we're going to put our outlets into. So let's go ahead and make an outlet for the word count. I'm going to call this word count label. Okay. And then we're going to do an outlet for the text field. I'm going to just call it title text field. And then let's do one for the text view as well. Let's call it body text view because there's going to be a body to every document. Body text view. And then we're not really going to change the save button. It's more that the save button is going to do an action. So I think we've got the outlets that we need to for now. At least I believe that we don't need any more outlets here. I think I'm good. Let me double check. Nope, we'll be good.
You need an action.
Yep.
Say.
So we'll just have to do the save. I'm not going to worry about navigation from this detail view because the detail will be kind of the end of the line. So we don't need to do any segues here. So I'll go ahead and drag from the save and insert the action. And let's just say save button pressed. Cool. So like making actions, making outlets, it's still the same. There's really nothing that's changed for you guys. Just the difference is that there's two files to choose from rather than just the one singular file that Swift gives us, which is another reason to appreciate Swift. But I mean, it's going to really boil down to, do you want the entire project to know about the outlets you've created, or do you just want this single view controller to know about it? Which, you know, the instances where I could think it's more important to have like a public one is maybe if you had an item in your navigation bar that you wanted to change depending on the view that you're in, and in every single view it has that label or button or whatever, maybe you would make that one public because the entire app's going to use it and it's going to change. In this case, these outlets are only responsive to what's inside this view. So we're just going to keep it private. So CC, does that kind of clear up that for you? Perfect. Sweet. Okay. Awesome, guys. We've made those outlets. As far as the save button press, we're going to implement that down the road, so we don't have to worry about that right now. So let's go back in. And then it says, add the segues from the cell and the add bar button item to the UI view controller scene. Give the segues appropriate identifiers. So there's only one segue. I don't know why it says segues. Oh, there is two segues. That's why. That's a good point to bring up. Why are there two segues? Why should there be two segues from this view to this view?
Because
One for add and one for view.
Yep.
Sorry, Alex.
No,
For
you're good.
Yep. So here is our add. So let's call this one add document segue. And then the other one's going to go from this actual cell that's been selected. We'll do another show. And then this one, so there's our add document. This one is going to be our show document segue. So today you guys will get a good dose of like doing a segue in Objective-C. It's very similar. It's really not difficult, but it's important to know and it's important to practice. We didn't get to it today, which is annoying, but we'll do it now. We'll practice it. Cool. So we've touched everything here. Do you guys see anything else in these instructions that we haven't touched on yet? Pretty good so far? Cool. So what I like to do, I mean, I've knocked out part one. I'm just going to go ahead and commit. So I'll stage my commits here, and then I'm just going to say configure UI and views. And then I'm going to go ahead and push. Cool. Awesome. And one thing I do like to do just to make sure that my commits have gone up is I'll just refresh the page that I'm working from here. And then you can see that my commit has popped up right away. So that way you guys are getting your contributions on your GitHub. You're getting credit for your code. And if you ever need to revert back to changes or see what mistakes that you might have made that you need to fix, this is a great place to come to. Cool. All right. So part two, NS string category. So this is the new stuff that we tackled today. I feel like this is going to be the hardest part of today's project. The rest is going to be really straightforward and easy. So it says create a new Objective-C file and set its name to word count. For the file type, select category. For the class, choose NS string. So will someone walk me through how to do this?
You do Command N. And then that, yeah, that one right there. And then you just name it what it said to name it as.
So word count.
Mm-hmm.
And then what file type is this going to be?
Is it category?
Yep.
Okay.
Category.
Prefix.
Yep, let's put our prefix in. And then what is this class going to be?
And a string.
And a string. Okay. So go ahead and hit next. And then add that into our file here. And then it gives us 2 files, which is normal. Whenever you get an Objective-C file, you'll always get 2 files. Okay, so let's clean this up first, and then let's talk through a little bit how we want to take care of this. The first thing it's going to do, probably because we have files that are already exposed to AppKit, it's going to import AppKit here, but it's saying, hey, we don't have AppKit here. You don't actually need this. We can get rid of it. That's going to be an error it's going to throw right away. So whenever you guys make one of those Objective-C files, it will probably give you that error. I can't tell if it's a bug or if it's something that just needs to be fixed. You don't need it. As long as we have foundation, we'll be good and we'll have everything that we need to do here. You can clean up this code a little bit. And then I think this one should be all good here. I'm going to hit Command B and just check. Yeah. AppKit not available when building for iOS simulator. Huh. That's probably why. Oh, shoot. I don't want to do that. So we'll go ahead and just delete it. Okay. So now that we've made this file, let's go back to the instructions and see what it's asking us to do. All right. So we've got it set up. It's called word count. It's a category. It's an NS string. Add an instance method called word count that returns an int to the category. In the implementation, this should simply return the amount of words in the string. Okay, so there's something that we do. Whenever we want an instance method to be declared, we kind of write it in 2 spots. So does someone want to walk me through how we would start to write this method? We haven't done this a whole lot. So I feel like this will be a good chance to
Is
learn
this
that.
the like dash and then parentheses instance type?
This is going to be, so that's for an initializer. So you're on the right track. An initializer is a type of method that we declare. But whenever you guys have typed like void and then you've done something with it, that's been a method. So what this is, so the dash is an instance method. And then in the parentheses, this is actually our return type. A lot of the methods that we've made up until now have either made an instance type, which is an initializer, or they've returned void. But like in Swift, if you guys wanted to write a function that counts the words, and you would pass in something first. You would pass in, you know, like a word that's a string, and then you would return an int, right? That's kind of how we would set up a function. We're doing the same thing here, it's just out of order. So this void is actually going to be our return type, what we expect to get out of the function. Does that make sense to everybody? Whatever comes inside these parentheses is what we want back. So if I want, let me go back to this a little bit. It says it returns an int. So where should I be putting that int here in this method?
And those parens where the void is.
Yep. So what we're going to do is we're going to try int. I'm going to see if it'll work. I'm curious about if this will work or not. And then now we name the method. This is the part where you give it some sort of name. So on the instructions, it says a method called word count. Whoops, we're in Slack now. A method called word count. So what we're going to say, we're going to return an int, and the name of our method is going to be called word count. You guys with me so far? This is just like saying func, name, and then the return type at the end. Okay, cool. All right, now what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this and we're going to take it over to the implementation file to make things happen with it. right now it's an instance method, so it's public. I don't see any reason that we would want this to be private, because this is a great example why. If this method was private, we would only be able to use it in this class. Does that make sense, guys? We would only be able to use it in this .m file. So this is the main difference, right? We could have totally gone and said at interface and then said the class and end, and here we could have put this in, but the method would have been private. It would have only worked within this class. But because we put it in the .h file, the entire project can use it. Do you guys see the distinction there? Okay, kind of a tricky thing. I mean, in Swift it's the same, we just say private and we do it all in one file. This is just like an added step. Now, here's where we're going to configure the method. And this project is hard because this is like doing a code challenge within a hard project of like return a number of ints out of a word count, which I feel like even if I asked you guys to do in Swift, it would still take a good amount of time to figure out. So I'm going to help you through it.
Well, I know in Swift there's a function on a string to break it by, whatever character you tell it.
Exactly.
It breaks it into an array, so then you can just get the count of the array. But I don't know about in Objective-C.
That's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to go through it. We're going to talk through each step. I wouldn't expect you guys to know how to do this right off the bat. I didn't expect it for myself. And now looking at this code, it makes sense, but I don't think I would have been able to just pull it out of my butt. So this is a really good way to just kind of practice it. So what we're going to do is there is a next step character set. And this is an object representing a fixed set of Unicode character values for use in search operations. And what we care about here is we care about white spaces. We care about spaces, blanks, whatever you want to call them. Those are going to be important here. Because if I write, hi, my name is Mitch, and you want to tell me how many words are in this, the compiler is not going to be intuitive enough to say, this is one word, this is one word, this is one word. In Swift it probably is, but not in Objective-C. It's only going to really know intuitively how to count all the characters in this. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to make the compiler think that this is one word, this is one word, this is one word, and so on. And we're going to make an array of it. We're going to make an array of words. And if you think about it, here's our first word, here's our second word, third word, fourth word, fifth word. And
hey, Mitch, can you make your text bigger?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm on my big screen, so that's probably why it looks so.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay, there we go. What we're going to do is we're going to get the compiler to realize these are the words that we're adding in. And this is the number of words that we're going to return. There's probably several ways to go about this, but I actually like this solution because I feel like it's intuitive, it's interesting, it's reusable. So we're going to do this. We're going to say spaces. So what we did is we just declared a variable called spaces. I guess it's not a variable, it'd be a constant here, but and then what we're going to do here is ns character set that I told you guys about here that we used. It has this method called white space and new line character set, which a character set containing the Unicode general category, which basically just means it looks for any white spaces, blank spaces, and it looks for new lines. Okay. We got to do a colon here. And now we're going to worry about our words, because this should declare our spaces that we have, and this is going to declare our words. So let's make an NS array, and we're going to call it words. And this time, instead of referencing NS character set, we're going to reference NS string, a property that NS string has. Actually, we're going to reference NS array. Sorry. We might be actually able to use self here. Let me check. Self self. Let me see if that throws us an error. Ah, it did. NS character set and NS array components. No, maybe it is NS string. Components separate. That's so interesting. Okay. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to refer to self, which is this words array, I believe. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look for this components separated by characters in set. And that's why we used this NS character set. So we can pass in our spaces here. And then that will be able to tell us how many words that we actually have, because it's looking for each blank space. And it's going to tell us how many words that we have here. When we come full circle at the end of this return method, you guys will see how this is going to work. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to make an NS index set. And then we need to know where the spaces are so that we can get rid of them. You'll see this here happen in a second. We're going to call it spaces index. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go into our words array. And then I'm going to look for indexes of object passing test. And then we can just double click this here. And it'll open up a little code block for us here. Don't worry a whole lot about this. This is like running a test right now. This is like checking for something. There are really intuitive, smart ways to do this in Swift. But this is going to be one way to check that something has a space in it. So, okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to return this up here has an object that we passed in. The object is referring to each word in the array. And then is equal to string. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to pass in, I think it's just that big of a space. We might have to come back and double check that it's that big of a space, or it might just be intuitive enough to do that. Okay. And then we can just close out this method here. Okay, so we still don't have a return type yet. We don't have a return int, but it's going to be really easy to see how we're going to actually return that int here based off of how we've set up this array. So we're going to return however many words we have minus by however many spaces there are. Sorry, spaces index. Okay, lose unsung, implicit loses conversion. Oh, we might have to change the type. That's probably why. Rather than returning an int, we can change it to a next step unsigned int, NSU int, and this should fix it. We've got to go back to the header file and do the same. So NSU integer. And that should fix it. Okay, cool. So kind of what happened here is this first line was going to set up where the commas were going to be in our array. So if you think about it down here, if I had something like, if I said, hello, my name is Mitch, what's happening here in the array is every time it encounters a blank space, it's going to, it encounters something new that's a white space or a new line, it's going to add a comma. So what's happening with this first line is it's saying hello, comma, that's our first item. And then it knows that there's a space. It's going to do a space, comma, and then my, comma, space, comma, name, comma, space, comma, is, comma, space, comma, Mitch. End of array. That's what this NS character set is doing. And so now when we make this words array, we can use the components separated by those spaces, white spaces and new lines. And now when we pass in, every time it finds an empty space, that's going to be our spaces index. That's going to be however many of these spaces that we have. So in this particular sentence, this has 1, 2, 3, 4 white spaces. But our words array has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 items in it. So what we're doing here is we're saying, give us the entire array, however many things are in it, and then just minus out the spaces. And then that will give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items. Does that make sense, guys? It's a whole lot. There's just like a lot going on here. And the funny thing is like in Swift, there's there's like dot syntax that you can do that will do this for you in one line. And Objective-C won't, unfortunately. So
yeah, I'm a little irritated that they expected we would have been able to figure this out. I would have personally just counted the spaces in the string. But it's probably not going to be accurate. Like you'd have to for loop through every character and what you sent in.
Yep. So, and that would be
I'm still getting an error, and I feel like mine matches yours.
What does your error say?
Implicit conversion of NSU integer AKN signed long to NS index set is disallowed with ARC.
I rebuild and it went away, Josh.
Yeah, I've done a clean. I've done a rebuild. I've tried that. I'll try a clean again.
Did you make sure you put it in your header file as well?
Let me double check. I thought I did. NSU integer right in front of the word count.
Yep.
Pass in. Or rather for the return.
Yep.
Yeah, I would have gotten a mismatch header.
That's interesting. I'm trying to think. Go ahead and share your screen and we'll see. Let me stop sharing so that you can do that.
I don't know if it matters, but I have a space after my dash and a space before word count and a space after word count.
Josh, let's try just delete your line 15 and I'm gonna send you a snippet of those.
How about
if that works for you?
Just 15 or down to 17 like that block?
Just the whole block. Yeah, delete that whole block. And then let me send this to you. Okay, it's going to be in Hayden's channel.
Voila.
Weird.
Oh, no, it's still building. Hold on. Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know. There was something off. I just couldn't see it.
Another reason to love Objective-C, I guess. All right, cool. Let's jump back to it. Okay, so this is honestly the hardest part of this project, is implementing this kind of word count. But basically what we're saying is, like, whenever we have a string passed in, we can access this method and it will count however many words we have. So if you can think, this will be really helpful in our text view delegate. When the user's typing it in, it's going to run this method nonstop. Every time there's something new typed in as an NS string, it's going to run this method. It'll just return this for us, which will ideally be however many spaces or enters there are. and then just minus those out of the words array. So kind of tricky, difficult stuff, but I mean, Stack Overflow, I think, is the way that this particular student found out how to do it. And so that would have been kind of the best way to go about it for you guys if you're doing this on your own. But personally, I think walking you through it would be more helpful because you've never really seen this implemented before. So, okay, cool. Let's go back in. So we've taken care of our NS string category, hopefully, right? We won't know until we actually test it and run it, but I'm gonna go ahead and commit. We'll say create category on NS string to use a method to count number of words. Kind of a wordy commit, but it is what it is. Okay, cool. All right, let's take care of the model. And really, guys, all that's left, we make the model. It's going to be pretty simple. We'll make the model controller, which will also be pretty simple. And then we're just going to wire everything up, and then it'll be done. It's really not a long project. It's just tricky. So we'll create a CocoaTouch class, NS object of document. Let's go ahead and make that. And don't forget, it's going to default to Objective-C file because we just made one, but go back to CocoaTouch. Now we're going to do an NS object. And then do your prefix document. And then I'm going to clean up these files just so we don't have as much junk to work with. What we'll probably do is we'll get the model and the controller set up, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll finish it all. And you guys will be done. I mean, it's 3 my time, but we should be done by at least 3 Pacific. So we'll be done quick. Okay, let's talk about this model object. So it needs properties with appropriate types and property attributes for a document's title, text, and word count. All right, so if we were going to declare properties in a model object, where do I start and what do I start with? Somebody walk me through this.
You declare like app property.
Yep. Okay.
And then the type.
Yep. So our first one, we're going to do a title. So let's say we'll make it a string called our title. Let's not worry about property attributes. We talked about like copy, atomic. Let's finish making them right now, and then we'll go in and add those, and we'll talk about why each one has what. So we've got our title. And remember, this is the exact same as just saying let title be of type string. It's the exact same thing. We didn't talk about pointers yet, but this pointer, this star, just refers to where it lives in memory. We'll talk about those more tomorrow, I think. Okay, and then I want a property for what else?
The body.
Yep. We'll add the body. And what am I missing?
Word count.
Word count.
Yep. And what type do we want that to be?
NS unsigned integer.
Yep, because we made it an NSU integer here in our word. Where is it? We made it an NSU integer here. It needed an unsigned long integer. Does anyone know what unsigned means?
They're all positive. There's
Yep.
no negative numbers.
All positive numbers. So don't think of this as any crazy thing. It's just like this is an int and it can only be positive. So this is going to be our word count. Okay, cool. So we've set up kind of the scaffolding for how the model needs to be set up. Let's talk a little bit more about how to actually implement the model in the .m file. We're missing kind of a key aspect. Anytime you guys make a class, you make a what?
Instance or initializer?
Initializer, yep. So we can do it. Let's go ahead and do one on this side for congruency. So we'll do an instance type. And this is going to be an init. but we're going to get pretty specific about what it is. We're going to actually go through each of these properties and go through it. So we're going to say init with title. And this is going to be our NS string pointer title. And then we're also going to have our body, which is also an NS string. And there's our body. And then weirdly enough, we're not actually going to return our word count right away. We're going to do that separately with the method. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. But we can go ahead and copy and paste this initializer into the .m file. And now let's try to figure out how we want to initialize these things. So let's go ahead and open this up. And I'll talk through why we don't exactly want to return the word count yet. Okay, let's do this. So in fact, if you guys just hit, maybe it doesn't do it. I think I have a snippet. I think I did have a snippet of all this, but I mean, it's not bad to just keep typing it out. So we're going to do self is equal to super init. And then we're going to say if self. And then the last thing is to return self. This is just like our basic implementation of initializer. Okay. Now, what am I going to do here to initialize both our title and our body, depending on what we file in through it?
The underscore properties.
Yep. So title equals title, and then underscore body is equal to body. Okay. We've kind of set up what we need to as far as init with this. Let's go back and talk about these properties that we learned about today. Kind of adding property attributes depending on what's going to, what we want to specify them as. So what did you guys learn from Paul today that's really critical about, let's talk about strings first. What did he say you always want to include on a string?
Non-atomic.
And I think generally, most of the time, you're going to want them to be non-atomic either way. Non-atomic meaning that like we're going to be able to change these things. And I think most variables, most constants for a model object, you're going to be filing different things into them. So we'll make them non-atomic. And then he said something about strings and arrays having a specific property attribute. Do you guys remember what it is? I'm trying to remember where I put this.
Read only, I think.
Let's see.
It
Here we
was
go.
either that or read write. I can't remember which one.
It's actually going to be copy.
Okay, that was my first choice, but then he tried to answer my question and then I got confused.
That's fine. And these generic rules, I'm going to work on making like a guide for you guys that will be helpful going forward of like, when do you use these? When do you not use these? I still need to practice them. I'm not really good at it yet. But for now, we'll just do copies. So we'll say if we have an array or string, we'll just make them copies. So we'll just say copy for that and copy for that. And then because our NSU integer, it isn't a primitive type. This is dumb too, because like we're making you guys kind of use primitives the day before the primitives lesson. Like you're gonna learn about it tomorrow. This is another classic example of like having you do something that you haven't learned yet. But if this were to be an int, there are a couple of properties too. Where did it say? Like assign, like floats and doubles and things, they're gonna have assign rather than copy. But we won't worry about that because this isn't a primitive technically. This is a formal next step type. So anyways, don't let that confuse you too much. Do you guys feel okay with how we've set up this model object so far? Or any questions about how it's configured?
No, but I can see why Swift is considered safe. Because, you know, it seems to me the compiler should have known that was a primitive, and so you should automatically make it a sign. But to make a programmer have to remember to put it in there opens a hole for someone to forget.
Well, that's the beauty of Swift too, is that like everything has a type. Nothing can go untyped. And so like in Objective-C, it's not always clear if something's like an object and a type or just an object. It's confusing. But in Swift, everything has a type. And you never have to worry about if you're type matching correctly because it will tell you if you're not, which is really nice. Okay, sorry if you can hear my dog. He's losing his mind. Okay, so what we're going to actually finish doing here is that we do want to include some way to return our body text count, like how much is actually in the word count based off of our body text. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make an declared method of our word count. This is our NSU integer is what's being returned here. And then we have our word count method. Whoa. I don't want to do that. Word count. And whenever word count returns, so whenever this word count method is called, actually this might be in, no, that's right. Whenever this is called, we're going to want to return our body word count. I know why this isn't working. That's why. Does anyone want to tell me why we can't get into our method right now? The method that we made in that other file.
Do we need to import it?
Yes, it's a public file because we made it in a .h, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the other files know about it right away. So we're going to import our word count .h file. So let me try to retype this so that you guys can see what happens here. Here we go. So if you guys auto type, it's going to say word count, and it'll bring up the method for you if you imported it correctly. And then you can open it up and say that, hey, whenever word count is called, I want you to file in some sort of item and give me the word count back. So what we're asking is we're saying, give me the body text's word count. So instead of incompatible conversion of a single integer, I think that should still be fine. Unsigned long. I think this will still work for us. We'll have to maybe come back and double check, but I'm pretty sure this will still work. So what's happening here is we're going to say, hey, if we call this method at any point, just give us the body text word count. Funnel the body into this method that we created, and then give us back however many words are in it. So this is going to return an int. This is going to specifically return the ints inside of our body. I think it'll make more sense when we actually apply this later on in a text view delegate. But if this doesn't make total sense right now, that's okay, because this is part of practicing and working with these initializers that are unfamiliar to us. Okay, how are you guys feeling so far? Okay, cool. So technically, this is all we need for our model. Our model has 3 properties, and then it also has one function, word count. This is a function that we made specific to our model object. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and commit it. And I'll say configure model object. Push it up.
I have a question.
Sure.
So we have a property which is called word count, and we're overriding the getter, I guess, right there.
Well, so body is of what type, Josh?
In a string.
And then what we did here is we made a
Oh,
category.
no. I get that. What I mean is on document.h, we have 3 properties and an initializer.
Yep,
Is that right?
correct.
So that third property is called word count. So when you're saying we created a method in the .m, but that is a getter, right? Like, because it's not really directly addressing like a property. It's more of a method.
It is a method. So it's, I mean, you could call it a getter, but I mean, it doesn't really factor into that. A property is going to be a getter or a setter or both, but a method is sort of like what we funnel properties into. So it's hard to say if it is like one or the other.
I'm just kind of confused on how it would distinguish the method, which is at the moment private, because there's no public interface in the .h. I mean, those two are tied together. Word count equals word count there.
Yeah, we could probably make it. I mean, I'm not particularly sure on the code that I'm looking at why he didn't put it in the .h. We can see if that will have an effect on us here. But I mean, I think it'll be okay.
Does that warning drop away?
Nope.
Huh. Okay.
But we kind of made two methods at once. But I mean, really all this is it's saying like, hey, oops. All it's saying is like, hey, take the body text and make it funnel through this word method that we made, this word count. And the reason that we didn't write, I mean, we probably could have written this all inside of here, but they wanted you guys to learn how to make a category to kind of extend upon classes. And that's the real, that's the real thing they're trying to get at here. But we've configured our model object, and it has everything that we'll need to go forward to make sure that we get a title, a body, and a word count, and make sure that we can compute that word count based on the body. So really all we need going forward is making sure that we have a title and a body passed in, and then we should be able to save it no problem. So, okay, cool. Let's go ahead and make our model object, and then we'll take a break. So prefix document controller. And then let's go ahead and talk a little bit about, we didn't really talk a whole lot about this. Let's see, create a CocoaTouch class. We did that. Add the property. We did that. Create an initializer that will set the title and text, not the word count. Okay, so it talks about it a little bit why here. And then it says using a custom property accessor for the word count property. In the accessor, use the word count method you just created in the NS string category, which is what we did. So I feel like if you guys look at the instructions, they'll kind of lead you along the path of doing that, and you'll see full circle when we finish everything that that's why we're doing it. Okay, so we're going to create a model controller. We did that. Add a property with appropriate property attributes that will hold an array of documents. Okay, somebody walk me through making an array of documents in our model controller.
Same thing, at property.
NS array, right? And then let's just call it documents. And now we need to think about a little bit what properties need to be put into here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this non-atomic. Do you guys remember this is the same for strings, but whenever we make an array, we're going to want to do copy. And then I think that'll do it. I think that'll be good for us. Okay, so this will be a property that will hold an array of documents. In the initializer of the class, initialize the array with an empty array. Okay, how would I go about initializing an empty array?
Mitch, can you go back to your header file real quick?
Yeah, sorry.
I think you can just set it to at open close bracket.
If you're gonna hard code things into an NS array, that would be the way to do it, like in the muted load. But here we're doing an initialization. So you guys have actually done this a bunch of times.
Thanks, Mitch.
So it's going to be init. And if you hit init, sorry, I did that a little fast. Go to init, find the method, and then hit enter. And it will pull up that Objective-C init for you. And then here is where we're going to make those documents. We're going to initialize those new documents. You guys remember today when we made those like internal tasks? We're going to do something similar here. So I want a separate array of tasks. Whoa. So this is going to be our MD document controller. I want a separate array of internal tasks. And you guys will see, we'll come full circle about why we want this, but you'll see it in a little bit. We're going to make, copy, we're going to make internal documents now. But the difference between the array that we made earlier and the array that we're making now is that this one is going to be mutable. Sorry, internal documents. Now, I get that we just made one array of documents as a property, and now we're making a separate one in a private file, but you'll see why here in just a little bit, because we'll talk about it. I don't want to confuse you quite yet. You'll see when it actually happens in action. What's up, Josh?
That reads dictionary.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. So how do we set this internal documents to be an empty array to start with? Do you guys want me to pulse soul and call on one of you?
Do you need to import our object, like our document object?
Yeah, we'll do that here in a second. We don't technically need to quite yet.
You basically allocate it and init it.
Yeah, so we're just going to say, hey, our internal documents are going to be equal to open bracket, NS mutable array, and then we have to just allocate space, right? We have to buy the land, and then we build on the land with the init.
Now I cheated. I have the day project open as well, so I just flip back and forth.
That's cheating, Josh. That's cheating to look at the guided project. No, if you guys don't look at the guided project, this is 20 times harder, so I'm glad you're doing that. Okay, so we did this. We took care of it. We made a property that will hold an array of documents, and then we initialized the array with an empty array. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about the difference between like having documents and having internal documents here in a bit. Add and implement 3 methods that will create, update, and delete a document respectively. Okay, we can do this in 2 ways. Do you guys want to do them all at once, or do you want to start with create, get the app to create documents, and then go from there? What would you like?
I do all 3.
Do all 3 right now? Okay,
Go.
let's do it. That way we can just get the model controller out of the way. We can just be done with it. Okay, so if I want to declare public methods so that if I use this model controller, you know, it can be used pretty much anywhere, how am I going to start to write these methods in the header file? Let's start with the create one. How would I make a create function?
Dash void.
So here's the interesting thing, right? Void would be our return type. Do we want to return something abstract, or do we want to return something concrete? That was a dumb question, sorry. Do we want to return something that may or may not be a thing, or do we want to return an object?
We want to return an object. We want
What
to
object?
return a document.
Yes. Okay. So I can say MB document, but it's not popping up. How am I going to get my document here?
Import.
Hashtag import MB document. And now when I build,
Is it just standard coding policy, like when you create something, then go ahead and return the new one, even though it adds it to the array, it's gonna return it.
You mean for like
I mean,
create?
I know we've done that in Swift. You know, you say model controller add this, and then return the new one that you just added. But I've never really had a case to need to have that return.
Well, with all three, it's going to be nice because you're going to do CRUD methods in Objective-C. So we're going to do create, update, and delete, and you'll see which ones need a return type and which ones don't. Because like obviously a delete won't need a return type, but an update and a create will, because we're going to make a new one each time. So, okay, cool. So to make our create method, what do we think intuitively, guys? What are we going to need to make a document?
A title.
Yep. Well, first let's give it a name, right? Because this is weird in that we have to like give the return type and then name it. What do we want to name our method?
Create doc.
Yep. Create doc. And then a weird thing about Objective-C is like, you know, in Swift, we can say func create doc with title string, you know, like that. But in Objective-C, we're going to get rid of this parentheses, and we're just going to go ahead and jump right into the function right as soon as we name it. So I'm just going to say with title to specify what's being passed in. So we need our NS string of our title. What else do we need?
Our body text.
Yep. And then the nice thing about the way our model is set up is that we've already configured it to return a word count based off of what the body is. So we don't even need to return anything beyond that. Whoops. What? Why are you being dumb? Maybe it is void. Oh. I'm being dumb.
You need a pointer?
No, it needs to be void and then the return type for some reason. No, that's not right.
No.
No, they were just missing a pointer, I think.
I don't know.
Like MB document star.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let me see. No. Maybe I told you guys wrong about the void. I was pretty sure it's the return type.
You got no errors on mine. What's your error?
Mine has no errors.
You guys don't have errors?
I put a pointer after document. Yeah.
Right.
Did you Command B? Is that a dumb question?
What was your question, Alex?
Did you like build it again, like Command B?
That's so weird. Huh. Okay, well, there it is.
Until
Oh my God, I worked with Paul yesterday, and I had like 3 or 4 or 5 different errors on the screen, and I'm sitting here chasing down errors, and he goes, "Why don't you do a clean and then a build?" And like 3/4 of it disappeared, and I was just sitting there going, I can't freaking believe I've been sitting here this long trying to chase down something that just went away.
Objective-C, man. That's the worst. Okay, cool. So this is our create method that will return a document if everything goes well, right? Now, let's go ahead and I'm still not quite sure about this yet. I'm still tentative about it, but we'll see. Let's do our update. It's probably been a minute since you guys have done like an update method, but let's start with this one, right? So we're gonna get back a document, and then we're gonna say update doc, And what are we going to pass into this?
Document.
Yeah.
Pointer.
So this is going to be an MB document. And we'll call it document. And depending on how we want to do this, that might be all we need. We'll see. We'll figure it out together. And then, because I'm looking at his code and I'm like already starting to think that there's some better ways to do it, which is fun. That means I'm learning, I guess. And then last one, let's do Pixel decided to come hang out. That is Pixel, right, Cece?
Yes, it's almost feeding time, so he's trying to round me up. But it doesn't matter because he has an automatic feeder. So
That's hilarious.
Automatic feeder, but he still comes to bug you, right? It's getting close, Mom.
that's right. He's gotta make sure it's gonna get done.
Yeah.
Will somebody slack me that?
Does that scare him? Oh, that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep. It's got a bunch of my prefixes in it, but that should be good. And we might have to come back and tweak this because, like, I know for sure we're going to return a document and a document, and we're not going to get anything back from this. But as far as parameters passed in, we might have to come back and tweak it. But I think we'll be okay so far. Because you guys are seeing how like uncomfortable I am with Objective-C. I'm not perfect at it, but we'll give it our best go. Okay, last thing, let's go in the implementation file and then just make sure that we've got these, because it's yelling at us now. It's like, you don't have those 3 methods. So we'll do our create doc with title. We'll do our update doc. And then we'll do our delete doc. And we'll talk a little bit through the logic of these and how we kind of want to get them to change. Okay, so let's talk about the create doc first. So if I want to create a brand new document, how am I going to go about doing that? If we were going to do this in Swift, I would say let document.
Allocate and initialize.
Yeah. So in Swift, we would say let document. So how do I do this? The same thing as saying let document.
The Alex thing.
That'll be when we buy the space. You're right. You're on the right track. But the weird thing is that we have to declare the type first.
Yeah, we need to import the document.
Yeah, I think it'll still work for us because it's in the header file. As long as one of these 2 files has access, both of them should know what it is. Because in here, we've imported MB document in the header file. The M file also has it as well. So we got our document, and then you guys were on the right track. We have to allocate with space. So we'll say MB document alloc. And then now we can use our initializer. We can init with the title and the body. And what do I want to pass into these 2?
The stuff the user inputs.
Yeah, and the methods here will do it for us because we've got a title and we've got a body. So then when we get into the actual view that's going to do this, we can pull out that information. Okay. Cool. Let's do... Okay, cool. I can already see why I want to change my mind about this, but we're on the right track. How do we add a document to an array?
Well, we would append it in Swift, but we do the other thing.
Add object.
Add object.
Like an object method.
So you have to do this open brace, which means, hey, perform operation. Perform some magic to happen. we're going to go into our internal documents, and I'm going to say self, actually. We're going to say self.internal documents. And then once we have our internal documents, we can say add object document. So this with the square bracket, these square brackets here, it's the same as just saying internal documents dot append document. It is the exact same thing, just a different syntax. Okay, I'm already changing my mind about this. Look, we're getting an error here because it's expecting to return a document. Because we've appended it to this internal documents, we don't actually even need to return a document. So we can just void it. So go back to your create method in both the M and the H file, and instead of returning a document, we'll just void. Because the method's going to do the magic and add it to the array, and we don't really need it to return anything. Does that make sense to you guys? Or is that just total, did I just totally confuse you? Okay, good. You can see the cases where maybe you would want to return a document to use immediately, but in this case, we're just going to tack it onto an array. Okay, conflicting return type. No, it's not. It's the exact same. Yeah, it's the same. Okay, cool. And now knowing what I know about creating a document too, we're going to do the same thing, I think. Yeah, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to return void because we're just going to append it. So on your, all three methods are going to just return void. I changed my mind. Because, I mean, either we're going to add it to an array or we're going to remove it from an array. We don't care about returning it back. Oh man, you guys. We're going to get through this, I swear. Okay. Document. Yeah, we're going to have to add more to this. So right now, if we passed in a document, that would be all good and fine. So like, we're going to pass in a document here, but we want it set it equal to something else. So we've got our document, and we want its title to be set equal to some title that we pass in. And we want our document's body to be equal to some body that we pass in, but our parameters here only are passing in a document to start with. So here in our update, we are going to want to pass in a title and a body as well. It's not hard. It'll just take a little bit more. So we'll pass in.
What method are you going to use for the update?
This is the update.
No. I mean on the method associated with the NS array or NS mutable array. Or are you going to do like add this one in, delete the one that exists?
You'll see that. Yeah, we'll just modify. We'll just pass in a document, give it new things, and it will just change the properties inside of it. So it will still be living in the array. We'll just find the document, change something about it, and let it stay in. Does that make sense?
Sure.
We'll see it we'll see it actually happen here in a little bit. So let's pass in the body, which is an NS string. And the NS string is a body as well. And now because I was a dummy and made you guys do different things, we got to go back to the M file and change this. Or sorry, the H file. So that is what that should look like now. Let me open these both up so you guys can see them. Or that is probably not any more helpful for you guys. So here's what it looks like in the .h file. Here's our update document. We're passing in a document, a title, which will be from the title text field, a body, which will come from the text view. And then in our .m file, we're going to take the document, modify its title to be equal to the title we pass in here, and modify its body to the body that we pass in here when we update it.
Could you Slack the two functions
Yeah, what if we do this? Let's finish the delete. We'll take a break, and then I'll just post it all for you guys so that you have
Yeah,
it.
that's perfect.
Cool. And the last one is actually super easy. So to delete a document, all you have to do is go into the array and then just do remove object document. That's just the same as saying remove object at an index. But this one is going to be super easy. Oh, excuse me. So that was beefy. I'd say the two hardest parts about this project are how do you do the category and get it to return a body count? And how do you implement CRUD methods? Because we did neither of those things in the morning project. So you guys can see why I wanted to do this with you. Like you were not prepared to do well in this. You were not set up to win at this project today. So, okay, well, I'm going to post this in the channel for you. Let's take a 5-minute break, guys. Come like 50 after, a little bit after then. 50, 51. Does that sound good to you guys? Okay, get up, stretch, feed your cat, do what you need to do.
Hey, Mitch, I'm getting an error on the .m file.
Okay. Let's take a look. Do you want to share your screen?
Sure. Where is it? Oh, yeah, I have this thing.
Remember title. No visible interface for. Okay, so go back to your .h file.
Okay.
Okay, and then let's go to your dot. We need to go to your documents, the actual model object. So go to .h. Title. So you called it a init w title. You need to say with.
Oh, I see.
So go ahead and build it now and see if that'll work.
Perfect. I think that worked.
Don't you love seeing that build succeeded check mark?
Yeah. Oh, so it's this thing right here. Or got it.
Cool. Okay, that feels so good. I love those easy fixes.
Yeah. Thanks.
You bet. All right. Oh, Cece, I was gonna ask, does a feeder, does it do it like on an hourly interval? Like how often does it do it?
We have it scheduled. We have the PetNet, I think is what it's called, PetNet app, and you can upload a picture of your cat and you can set its feeding schedule. So currently we have it set for 12 a.m., 6 a.m., 12 noon, and 6 p.m. And then an extra cat snack at 4 o'clock in the morning because I like to have my sleep.
I know those, seriously, cats, that's their thing. It's like when you need your sleep the most, they'll come and hop on your chest in the middle of the night and bother you.
Yeah, he likes to pat my face.
Cece, does your cat eat like a dog? Like he'll eat whatever's there?
Oh yeah, he'll eat the entire food bowl. Like that's why we have to have a automated feeder that does the correct portion control. Because if we filled up a bowl, he would eat the entire bowl.
He'd eat it all. Yeah, he'd look like Garfield.
Yeah, he basically is Garfield.
That's
He's so fat.
Yeah. I've had both kind of cats. I've had them where they do that, or where they eat like a cat. You know what I mean? Like they'll just eat a little bit here and there.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. My sister has a cat and it's huge. It's like 13 pounds now, and it's just like dense, but it goes to the bathroom and the toilet. It taught itself how to use the toilet, so it's really, but they can only feed it at nighttime. She only gets 1 meal a day because she's needs to lose some weight. That's sad.
Poor baby.
Okay. Once Alex gets back in here, we'll make sure she knows this. But do you guys remember how we set this documents array to be a public property? Now what we did here is like we made internal changes depending on this internal documents that live just inside our documents controller. But what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to return our documents as a computed property. We'll talk a little bit why here in a second when we actually apply it in the table view and in the detail view. But what we'll just say is, hey, whenever documents is asked for, return internal documents. Because we kind of want to keep the two separated. And you'll see why here when we jump into more implementation. But I mean, just from your, a bird's eye view, internal documents is only going to deal with the stuff right here. And documents is going to deal with things in all the different views. So we've got one living inside the documents class, and then we'll have one that's publicly available to all the views. We'll keep them separate for a reason.
So that one at the bottom is like a public facing one?
Yep. We've declared it in our .h file here, this array of documents. And we did this mostly because one, I mean, the project sort of asked for it, I think. Let's see here. Add a property that will hold an array of documents. I mean, we probably could have done one and gotten away with it, but this is the one that we're going to need throughout both the master view and the detail view. And this is one that's just going to worry about create, sorry, I have the hiccups today, create, update, and deleting. So kind of tricky. This will make you appreciate model controllers in Swift a lot more too. I feel like they make your life a little bit easier. Alex, we added just one thing. We added a computed property of documents. We made the documents in the .h file. And in here, we're just going to return internal documents.
Can I see the H file?
Sure.
So what did you add in here? Oh,
we already had this actually. We just didn't finalize it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So we made this earlier on, like a half hour ago. And then what I did here is we just made a computed property that, hey, if we ever need documents, go into this controller and get the internal documents that live here.
Okay.
It's kind of like a transfer between a private variable and a public variable, saying like, hey, I want some of the information you have, and I'll take it.
Okay.
So now we can get into the really fun part. We've done all this scaffolding without actually seeing anything cool happen yet. Now we can actually update the views with different information. So I'm going to go ahead and commit. And we'll say structure model, structure model object, I'm sorry, model controller with CRUD methods. And your commit can be whatever you guys like it to be, but kind of looking through here, I can see all my steps really specifically, which is nice. All right. So we've got our create, update, and delete methods. And I think going forward, this will be like your master resource for you guys whenever you need to do CRUD methods in Swift, or I'm sorry, in Objective-C. This project will be a really good starting point of like what to use. We didn't really talk about it in lecture today, and I wish they would have, but now you have them, and I think that's going to be helpful. All right, let's get into the stuff that you guys are actually familiar with. This is the fun part that we've done a bunch. So add a property in the view controller with property attributes for an instance of your model controller in a table view controller subclass. And so all that's saying is like, we want an instance of our model controller. It's a blueprint now, but we're going to make it a real thing. Okay, so we're going to go to our table view controller. And who wants to walk me through making the property?
Don't we have a little IOU property at the top, like outside of the interface? I can't remember exactly what we have.
For this one, because the table view is going to be passing the information from the table view into the detail view, we're going to make it a public property. It's not just going to live in the table view, it's going to live in both the table view and eventually move to the detail view. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to keep it in the .h. So it's going to be app property. When in doubt, if you need to
why does the table view controller need a public interface to its controller? Is that what you're making the controller?
Yep, we're going to make a controller, and the controller is going to be initialized in the table view, but then we are going to pass it into the detail view. So it needs to be available to both.
Well, that needs to be on the detail view controller. It needs to be public. Like when you do the direct inject?
Yeah, we're going to take it from this table view, our master view, and then segue it into the detail view. So it's going to start publicly here for that reason. So we'll do an app property. When in doubt, non-atomic. I mean, Paul said it today, but like pretty much every property you make going forward is going to be non-atomic. Swift does this for you under the hood. But I mean, in Objective-C, we'll actually have to do it. Go ahead and import your model controller. It's our document controller. And then we got to declare the type. So MV document controller. And then we'll make our lowercase instant of it. Instance controller. Okay, cool. So that's all squared away. Now let's go into the table view and start to make some magic happen with this. So I'm going to clear the commented code out of the muted load. We don't need number of sections. We do need number of rows. And we do need self or row app. We need commit editing style because we're going to delete, right? So this one right here, table view, commit editing style. Look for the one that says, hey, if editing style is delete. We do want this one. This is how we're going to swipe to delete. And the nice thing about this here is we're not going to insert, so we can just get rid of this bottom half. So we only care about deleting the row from the data source. Okay. And then the last thing that we need is a segue. We need to prepare for segue. So we'll clean this up a little bit. There we go. Cool. So some of this you guys have already done, like doing the data source methods, but you've never done a delete editing style in Objective-C. So that'll be new. And we've never done a prepare for segue. So both of these today, I think, will be really good examples for you guys going forward for the rest of the week when you do need to use them. So let's start with what we know. How do we get however many rows we want to populate the data source?
Underscore our document controller.
Yep. What we'll do is we will do self, actually. So self.documentController. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the distinction between self and underscore. I think outside of initializers, I don't know that I've used underscore a whole lot. I think I usually use self. But we'll do documents.count. Remember, internal documents just deals with the CRUD methods, but the documents here, we're dealing with the actual data that we're working with. Okay, so that should populate depending on however many we have. And then for the cell, do you guys remember what we named our reuse identifier?
I thought it was document cell.
I'm pretty sure it is document cell. Okay. So if all went well, and we don't need a custom cell, right? Because we made a subtitle, so we don't need to worry about changing that. If you made a custom cell, this is where you would change it to your document name. You'd have to come up here and import. But what do we need to do here as far as the index path goes to get, all of our information to show up? Because like in Swift, we would say let document equal document controller dot index, or sorry, dot documents index path dot row, right? That's how we would do it in Swift.
Yeah.
How are we going to do it here?
Don't you need to instance the controller first?
Yeah.
Or
did we initialize the controller? I don't think this solution code initialized the controller at all. That's concerning.
Okay.
Let me check. I mean, we should initialize the controller.
Yeah, no, we need to do that in the viewed mode.
Right.
Last two guided projects, we've left that out and done it at the last.
Oh, no, we did it here. We initialized it here.
Oh, in the...
Yeah, in the model controller. Well, we should be, no. We made
Well, no, I mean, you have to initialize it in the table view controller. You have to initialize its property.
I'm wondering how he did it here. Oh, he did do it. Okay, yeah, we're going to do it in the viewed mode. He did it at the bottom, but it was really weird. Okay, so we're in the table view, And let's go ahead and initialize our document controller. Someone walk me through how we would initialize it here in the view did load.
Allocating a knit.
Yep. The problem is we don't have them yet. So we're going to need to import our MB document controller. Actually, that should be good. We should be able to get it because it's already in the H file. Yeah, we do have it. So we're going to want to make a document controller, which is equal to MB document controller, alloc init. So when the view loads, we'll make a new document controller. Unused variable. Oh, I think it's because we didn't make it in here. No, we didn't make it in there. Interesting. Well, it still should work for us.
Is there a reason we're making it in the view did load as opposed to like just in the class itself?
It's different because we aren't doing like a class per se. Let me take it out of it and see if it'll work differently. Let's try and put it up here and see if it will. Yeah. It needs to compile in some way that it, like is in the view's life cycle, which would be in the view did load. Oh, it's saying it's unused because we haven't, oh, we used it down here though. Interesting. Okay.
I just did self.controller because I called my controller equals and did the open. I guess that's not right. I'm just initializing the one that's already in the class. Or setting it to the, yeah.
Oh, you're, wait, what? Why is it failing? Duplicate methods for architecture. Did anyone else get that error? That is so interesting. That should be the right way to do it though.
You know how he did it? He did, not in the view did load, he did it in a initialize with coder or a knit with coder of
yes.
Of the table view.
Yep, that is right. Okay. We're gonna do that then. Knit with coder, and then we'll do it here instead. I don't know why it's failing though. See if you guys can get that and if it builds with the knit with coder. That build for you? Okay, sweet. I think I just have to clean my build folder probably.
Wait, what did you do?
So I made a knit with coder. So what you can do is you can just say a knit with coder and hit enter. And then the header file has this document controller. We just need to set it equal to something. So we'll do self.documentController is equal to an MB document controller, and then allocate space for it and make it. My build's still failing for some weird reason.
How about instead of self dot, use underscore, because this isn't a knit?
That's true. That's still failing. Well, we'll probably still power through it because if you guys aren't hitting errors, I'm probably just getting some weird, who knows what. But I think we'll still get to a point where it'll work for you guys even if I can't see mine working. Okay, so hopefully we'll have a document. Remember on Monday you guys were trying to figure out why, Paul had you guys stop and say like, why is everything nil? Why is nothing loading? Because it wasn't being initialized. This is how you would initialize it here. This is how you would make an instance of your model object. Or I'm sorry, your model controller. Okay, cool. So we've returned the document's count for the number of rows in section. Now we need to return information so that the cell will populate with document's title and the word count. So how do I do that? Remember before we'd say let document equal. How am I going to do that here in Objective-C?
Like your AR document star document equals, I can't remember the syntax on how to get the self. Yeah.
So self.documentController.documents, and then we can just do indexPath.row, just like we would in a Swift table view.
Isn't there another like Objective-C way-ish that is a little more?
Yeah, Paul showed you guys that one on Monday. I've never used it. I've only ever used this one.
I think it had like object in it or something like that.
Yeah, it had like object.index, and then you pass in the index path.row. But I mean, this one's already so familiar to you guys that I feel like don't fix it if it ain't broke kind of thing. All right, so now we can go into the cell, and the cell has labels. So it has a text label and a detail label. So we can set the text properties equal to those different things. So if we look back here, the top should be the title and below should be the word count. Sorry, it's going to take a second to populate, but we do know that the text label is going to be the title of the document and the detail is going to be the word count. When it hits save here, you'll see it. Just like that. So let's do that. So we'll say the text labels.text is equal to the document's title. And then we're going to run into an error here, and I'll see if you guys can figure it out. But the document's word count is going to be the other one. But remember, we've got a type confliction, right? Because our word count is of type unsigned integer. But this is looking for a string. So do you guys remember how to do that? It's kind of like string interpolating, but with Objective-C.
At sign, then put quotes.
Yes, but the problem is it's not like Objective-C isn't cool and smart enough to do that, unfortunately. What you have to do instead is you have to say ns string and then string with format. And that's kind of the same as doing string interpolation. And then you're right, Cece, we can do the at space. And then we'll have to pass in our document's word count inside here. But we do have to give it that weird like address, and it's different for everything. So like if you wanted to get just a normal object, you would do %at. If you wanted to do an int, you would do %i. If you wanted to do an unsigned integer, which is a long unsigned integer, you'd have to do lu, which is really goofy and weird. And then this is still going to throw us a weird error here. Oh, oops, because we don't have this. But it is still going to throw us a weird error, I think. Yeah, we can add in, I think there's a fix it here that will do it. Yeah, all we have to do is just do unsigned long. And that will just specify that, hey, we want to pass in an unsigned long integer that is this. Are you guys appreciating string interpolation a lot more now? Good. Like, regardless of anything, I hope that I like indoctrinate you the beauty of Swift and how fun and awesome Swift is.
And you might want to put word count colon or something like that in front of the %.
Yeah, that'll be good. Or maybe let's do number words. That might be good. Like 16 words. That'll be good. Cool. So that's all set up. So we should have, if we have 5 documents, we should get 5 cells. And then each of those 5 cells should have both the document's title and the number of words below it. So that's all squared away. Let's finish out the editing style. This is new. You guys haven't done this yet, so I'll walk you through it. What we're going to need to do is we have this document controller, and then it has a method called delete document. So we can call that method, but we need to pass in a document. So how do we get the right document? Hint, hint, we already did this on line 39.
By getting the title of that document?
We don't even need the title. We can literally copy.
Yeah.
We can just copy this entire line of code because this has already found the index path of that row. It's going to do the work of finding it for us. So all we have to say is say, hey, the document at that index path dot row, that's the one we're talking about. That's why this editing style delegate function is so nice. And then we can just say document. If you want it to be really descriptive, you could say document to delete, and then you could say document to delete. Same thing, just more explicit. And that's all you have to do for editing style. It's super easy. So then when we swipe it, it'll just delete it. And then our controller is set up in a way that it finds the document and removes it. Super easy. Okay, last thing, we're getting close, guys. We are so close to being done. Last thing we need to do is just finish out the prepare for segue, really. And then the rest of the stuff will be super smooth sailing and easy. Okay, so prepare for segue. What would you do in Swift? How would you start out in Swift?
Let VC equals segue.destination.
Or like if first.
As.
Yeah, I mean, we just really need to check the identifier first, right? We want to make sure we have the right identifier because there are 2 places that.
Oh, there are 2, yeah.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if segue identifier, and then we'll pass in segue, this comes from here, dot identifier. The syntax is a little bit funky, but I mean, don't let the braces and the parentheses confuse you. It's still the same thing. So instead of saying if segue.identifier equal signs, we're going to just do is equal to string. Same thing, different syntax. Stupid, dumber syntax. Swift is great. Alex is laughing, but you guys are all thinking it. I know you are.
No, I just turned around and was like, I did that right to my dad and realized that I wasn't muted.
Oh, that's funny. So we've got our add document segue, and then we've got our add, and we'll do an else if for the other segue. We'll get to that here in a second. So we'll do segue.identifier is equal to string, and then this one was show document. You guys will see next week that the reason that Objective-C is still good is it's very responsive to key values. So this is a good example of like a key value that's been implemented in Swift because it's still good. So like looking for segue identifiers as strings, that's an example of key value coding where we give it a string and it does something if it got the right value. So you guys might think sometimes like, oh, it's so annoying that like we have to get the strings not misspelled, but that's actually something that came from C because, you know, if you spell a string wrong, it's really easy to get it to mess up, but it's also a good way to make sure that things are always right because they have to be spelled a certain way. So it's something that's carried on through Swift. All right, so if we're gonna add a document, now we're gonna start to worry about the destination. So how would I do this in Swift? What were you saying, Josh? Let destination something?
Well, I usually just call it VC, so let let VC equal, segue dot destination as question mark, and then whatever my custom class is for that controller.
Yep. We're not gonna, it's weird. So this is like the thing where things start to get interesting. So what we're gonna do first is we're going to import our detail file. So we're gonna do our MB, sorry, it's just view controller. I should have been more explicit with what it is, but it's just our view controller. Make sure you import the destination where it's going to. So in this case, it's going to our view controller, our detail view. And once you have that imported, now we can do the work of that by just saying MB view controller. And then I'm going to just call this destination VC. And set it equal to segue dot destination view controller. Kind of backwards to what you guys are used to in Swift, because you usually say let VC equal segue dot destination downcast as your custom type. We're just kind of switching it up a little bit. You declare the type first and then set the destination view controller equal to it. Okay, you guys with me?
Did we ever create a public variable to pass our document in?
We didn't yet. The nice thing here is that we won't have to. We just need to pass our document controller first. But you're right, we do need to go in and do that. So we're gonna do destination VC, and then this needs to have some sort of property that we're gonna pass. In this particular case, we made a document controller. We're gonna wanna pass it. So we wanna make sure that we have one singular document controller. So does someone wanna walk me through how I can declare a document controller in the where we're going to so that it can be passed? I don't think I said that question very well, sorry. I'll try it again.
You need to go to the header file for the view controller.
Okay, you're right. So we'll go into the header, and then just like we've done.
And import your class or your model.
Yep, we're gonna have to import, yeah, might as well just do both. We'll import our document model, and we're gonna import our MB document controller as well. The whole aspect of like importing sucks. One other thing to appreciate about Swift. So now we can go into this and make sure that we have a document controller. It's like the mailbox is going to get it from here. So I'm going to do non-atomic, and we'll call it a document controller. We might as well just make both, really. Maybe document. And then, so this one's going to be our document, and this one's going to be our document controller. Okay. You guys with me so far? Doing pretty good. I swear we're going to get done by stand-up, I swear. And then you'll have the rest of your night to just work on the other 2 projects from this week.
TL, yay!
Bless you, Mitch.
Just kidding. If you guys get done with this today and you feel good, don't worry about the last 2 days projects. Unless you're still working on your sprint challenge from last week.
Yeah, I was going to say, some of us still have a sprint to go work on.
That's also important to worry about. If you're hell-bent on not flexing, make sure you make that a priority as well. Okay, so now this should have a document controller that we can pass through. I'm trying to remember if it needs to be implemented here at all. Nope, it should be good. So, okay, so now we can go in here. You can say destination VC dot document controller. And what do we want to set that document controller equal to?
To this document controller.
Yes, we'll reference that with self, just to be sure. Cool. So if all goes well with that segue, it'll take our current document controller and pass it to the next one. Okay. segue dot. Let's do the second one just because it's going to be quick. I think we can get through it pretty quickly. So this time we're going to not only pass a document controller, we're also going to pass the cell, the actual like document that's living in the cell. So this one's going to be a little bit different, but generally the same. So we're going to make sure that the destination view controller is the same. Segue.destination view controller. So that's where we're sending stuff to. But now, sort of differently, we want to make sure that we get the right index path. And we've done this before in Swift by doing index path for selected row. This is just the way to do it in Objective-C. So you're going to do ns index path, declare an index path, and then we'll just get the one from our table view index path for selected row. And that will just make sure that when the user taps on a cell, it's got a specific item to get. Okay. And then let's go ahead, let's say destination VC. We're not only going to pass a document controller. Whoa, what's happening? What? It needs to compile. We're not only going to pass a document controller, just like we did, self.document controller. We're also going to pass the document that lives in the cell that we selected, in this index path that we selected. So the way that I'm going to do that here is not super hard. It's just going to be self.document controller.documents, and then this time it's a different index path, just depending on what we selected, but index path.row.
Row.
Yep. Not too tricky. You guys have done this in Swift. It's just on the same lines. Okay, cool. Now this table view is technically done. It should have everything that we need. Configure table view data source, segue methods. Last thing, detail view controller. It's going to be pretty quick and easy, I think. So if everything got passed correctly, we just have to make some magic happen here to change things up a little bit. If you guys were to do this in Swift, how would you get things to start updating and changing depending on that?
Update views.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah, let's do that. Let's make an update views. Which really, we won't use the update views until we get a document back. So we'll say update views. And I'm going to just only declare it in this file because it should be private, right? Private update views should only happen here, really. We don't technically...
Sorry, I was going to say we want to check if document that we're passing in is nil.
Yes, exactly. So we've done this before with a did set, right? You guys have made did sets before to make sure that we actually got something and then it can change depending on it. I'm going to show you the Objective-C equivalent of a did set. So there's going to be a void return type, and there's something called set document. And this is the equivalent to an update views. So what we'll do here, let me make sure that I'm checking his files right. Yeah, I think so. Okay. So if our document does not equal underscore document, this is where it's going to finally come into play, where self.document is different from underscore document. This document is going to refer to what's coming through in the segue. This document is sort of like a placeholder. It's like the document at the start that's, you know, when we do it in Swift, we say var document of type document question mark, because it doesn't exist until it passes through the segue. That's what this underscore is implying here. Does that make sense, guys? Hopefully. Okay, so what that's saying is if they're not the same, aka if it's not nil, because we can't do optionals in Objective-C, it's dumb, we're going to set that document equal to our document. And then here's our did set. We're going to call update views. So self update views. So I know this is some funky logic, but what it's saying is if our document isn't nil, set the optional placeholder document equal to the document in the segue, and then go ahead and call update views. And then in our update views, we can change things depending on, you know, if we actually got a document back. We'll worry about that here in a second, but let's implement the save button because we haven't even done that yet, right? So if you guys were going to implement a save button in Swift, how would you save a new document?
Using the controller, add.
So we have
first I'd unwrap the text fields and make sure they had info.
Exactly. So here, I'll go ahead and start to type this so you can see what we need from it. So we've got this create method that needs to have both a string and a body. Our initializer will do the work of making the body the word count for us. But I mean, there's not really a guardlet for us, but it's not going to matter because in Objective-C, we can't have optionals. Like there has to be text in it or else it won't even let them press enter. So we'll do our title is equal to our title text field dot text. And then our body is going to be equal to our body text view dot text. And now we can pass in that title and our body. And then what's one last thing that, you know, if everything saved well and did what it needed to do, what else would you want this save button to do for you?
Pop.
Yep. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to access our navigation controller. And then just like Cece said, we'll do pop. There's this pop view controller animated. Probably the best one I would say to use. And instead of typing true, I think true will work, but I would just type yes because that's correct Objective-C syntax. So if everything goes well, this should do the work of saving that and popping back to the view controller before. I'm 90% sure that even if you guys hit save, that nothing would pop up if you ran it right now. And I will give you guys brownie points if someone can tell me why. This is probably a great question that like would be asked in an interview that I think people would really overlook.
Don't we need like view will appear?
So you're on the right track. Okay. So back in our table view, view did load only loads one time. So when the app launches, that is the singular view that happens only once, and it's going to stay that way. Just like Cece said, if we don't implement view will appear, then we won't see any change happen. So what you're going to have to do is back in your .m file of your table view, is you're just going to have to call table view reload data.
That's funny. I wouldn't have thought of that. That's a great use for that. But I mean, we've used delegates for that.
You could use a delegate, but I mean, the view's only going to, I mean, the view lifecycle methods are really important to know in the fact that like view did load is only going to load one single time in the whole lifecycle of the app from start to finish. But view will appear will happen whenever the view comes back. So Cece, brownie points to you. That was awesome. I did not expect that. You did awesome. Okay. I can't run it for whatever dumb reason is going on with my build. Are you guys able to build right now? Josh, you're not? Do you have some weird error?
Well, click on your thing up there. Mine has an error somewhere. Let's see if yours is the same.
Mine says duplicate symbols for architecture.
Oh, weird.
Some really weird error. So I don't know what that is, but it is what it is. Oh, magnet's not working. Whoever is able to run it, will you see if you're able to save a document?
Mine's complaining about LSI document table view controller.h.
Okay, what is it saying?
It says expected member name or semicolon after declaration of specifiers, but I have a semicolon after my property.
Weird.
I'm not seeing where another semicolon should go.
Go ahead and share your screen.
Find Zoom.
I have the expected identifier error. I don't know what that is.
Property non-atomic. This is your .h file? Yeah.
Yeah.
Documents, table view controller. Clean your build folder. That's so strange.
Oh wait, it just went away. Maybe not. So now I've got a different, yeah, I was sitting here working on this.
Oh yeah, just type animated.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah. So that other error went away. You're right, cleaning the build work.
Yeah, you'll need to do it a lot more with Objective-C.
Oh, that's here.
And then in below it, you'll just do self.tableview. And then reload data. Yep. And then you should be good. I actually think that if you guys have a successful build, you still won't be able to save an object.
I think I can, possibly, but my constraints are terrible.
Are they?
That's what I'm playing with. But I can put a title in and save objects.
So did it populate in your table view?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. I was doing this. I was just like pulling stuff out of my head. Didn't really know if it was going to work all the way, and I love when it does. Awesome. Okay. Let's do the last piece, which is just updating. And we didn't do the delegate yet. I mean, like the whole point of this app was to like, when you type stuff out, the numbers were supposed to change on the label, and we didn't do that yet. It'll be really quick. We won't have to worry about it too bad. So whenever you guys have some sort of delegate method that you want to perform, this is how you're going to do it. So in this particular instance, we need to do the text view delegate. If you look back in the instructions, it says implement the text view did change method. So it says you need to adopt the UI text view delegate protocol. And the way that we're going to do that is you go to the .h file of wherever your text view lives. And then, normally we would just do like a comma and you do like UI text view delegate. Here, what we're going to do instead is it's a little bit funky. It's a little bit different. You have to do a square bracket like this. And then you do, or not a square bracket, an arrow bracket, text view delegate, and then close it. That's how you add conformance to a delegate protocol. And the reason that we're going to want to do this is because the text view did change is going to look for any sort of modification in the text view. And every time it changes, we want it to call that word count method. So now we can come into the .m file. You should be able to write text view did change and get access to that method. Let me know if you're not able to. I think everyone should be good. Alex, I don't know why I thought that was like a bottle of wine and you were just like, I'm over this day.
I wish it was a bottle of wine.
Oh, believe me, that's how I felt the whole time with Objective-C. So You guys are doing much better than I did. Okay, cool. So now what we're gonna do is we have our word count label, and that's what we want to change in this delegate method. So we're gonna say self.wordCountLabel.text needs to be equal to some sort of string. So that's what I kind of like to do first, is like set up what needs to be changed and work backwards, because I don't always know exactly what needs to be done. I do know that this needs to be a string. So what I'm going to do, because we can't string interpolate, I'm going to make an NS string. And let's call it word count string. And then we can do what we did earlier with NS string with format, sorry. And same thing as in the cell, we're gonna say at unsigned LU with that %sign. I hate these dumb placeholders. I think they're so stupid. So this is gonna be our placeholder for the word count that's gonna get passed in. So hopefully every time the text label changes, it'll say blank words, but it'll change with however many we get returned back from the word count method. But what we're gonna do to pass this in is we have to call our method on the text view's text property. So we'll say textView.text, and then we should have word count. Oh, we don't have word count. Does anyone want to tell me why we don't have word count?
Because we didn't extend text view.
We didn't import it.
Oh.
We have to import that dumb file that we made 3 hours ago. The word count file. That one. Whatever you named yours, that dumb file needs to be here. So once you import it, then you should be able to go into and say, hey, turn a string into an int with this method. What questions do you guys have about this? And then this just needs to be word count string. So there's a lot going on here, but what it's saying is, I'm going to make a string, and this is how we string interpolate. This is kind of what is going in the backslash parentheses, this %lu. And then what we're passing into it is we're getting the text views text, which is a string, and we made an extension on NS string so that it can turn a string into an integer with this word count method. So there's a lot going on in this code, but if it somewhat makes sense to you guys, I'm happy with it. Okay, so the last thing, this happens with every delegate. Do you guys know what you have to do whenever you make a delegate and it's not working for you?
You have to put like delegate as self.
Yep, we usually will do it in viewDidLoad. load. So I think we might just be able to do self.textView, what did we call it? Body text view dot delegate is equal to self. And that should do the trick. I would build, but mine's giving me a dumb error. Okay, now are you guys all able to build right now? We got some errors. Who is able to build? Josh, if you can build, run the simulator. CC, run the simulator as well. Start typing in the body text view and see if your label updates.
I can't because my constraints are awful.
Oh, that's right. Did it work well?
Yeah, mine works.
Yeah!
I have a weird error though. I don't know what it is.
Say? Let's do this. Because we got 15 minutes till stand up. Let's finalize the update views and then we can figure out what the errors are. But now that we know that we're saving and the text views being updated, like we're done. We're like done-ish pretty much, which is really great. Let's just do update views. Oh, sorry, Alex, what's up?
I said mine works.
God
Perfect.
bless America. Okay, sweet. Okay. So let's do let's call update views whenever the user selects it and there is, this whole did set should be checking for us. So we do want this to update depending on if there's a document when they select a row. Oh, Alex, will you test one more thing for me?
Yes.
When you create a document, can you swipe and delete it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
You guys, look at me. I didn't think I was able to do this, and here we are. Rad. Objective-C is not my fave, but we're making good progress here. Okay. So let's do update views. One pitfall that you guys will find out is that you have to make sure that the view is loaded. So we want to make sure that the view is loaded. Because if it's, if the view's not loaded yet, but the object got passed, it's not going to be ready to display that object. You always going to make, this is our guard is view loaded right here. So if self is view loaded, and we want to say, if there's a document, self.document, I guess we can probably do underscore document maybe. No. We might have to go the reverse. Let's do this. Let's do self.document. I don't like this. We got to make sure we have a document or else it's not going to update. We'll play around with it and we'll see. We want to make sure the view is loaded. So we'll say if the view is loaded, we want to make some magic happen. So the first thing that we can do is change the title. How would we change the title of that view?
Is it title?
Self.title.text equals.
We don't even need the text because this
I don't even need the text.
Yeah, this is actually an NS string as is, so we won't need to. So we can say self.document.title. And then let's change, what's the next thing down on our view? The word count? Yeah, it's the word count. So then let's say self.wordCountLabel.text is equal to, I'm actually just going to copy. We want to do a word count string because this needs to be a string. So let's preemptively make a word count string and let's make it right above. So we'll do NS string, word count string. And this is going to be a lot on the same lines as what we did down here. So you can even go down to this at line 51 and copy and paste a majority of it. We're just going to tweak it a tiny bit. So instead of returning our text views.text, what do we want to return here? What needs to go through the placeholder?
Document.count or document.wordCount.
Yep. And then this is going to give us that dumb error again. We just have to say unsigned long. Okay, so that should be good. Last thing, let's do self.titleTextField.text is equal to our document title. Well, that's kind of redundant, right? Because we already set the title equal to it. I don't even know why we made a label for the title text field, but meh. We can change it anyways just for the sake of proving that we're programmers. So it's going to say the title twice, which is kind of dumb. And then last thing, let's do the document text view. What did we call it? Body text view? Yeah. That text is equal to our self.document.body. So as long as the view's loaded, and I guess what we could do is we could say and document. Oh man, it's still not giving us the document. Document does not equal nil. I don't think that's going to work. Yeah, that's so weird. Maybe self.document? Interesting. I don't know how we want to check to make sure that there isn't a document. Because the document should be right here. Huh.
Is there like a thing called like does exist something?
We could try. Let's see. Self.document. _document.
I was thinking of like is hidden, but like is existing, but that's not right.
That's so weird that this isn't available. Because we want to make sure that we have one there. The thing is like we're able to access the document here. So I don't know why we wouldn't be able to access that there. Self.document. Oh. I think I know why. No, I'm full of crap. Never mind.
Yeah.
It all needed to be in the parentheses. That's so stupid. Okay, there we go. So if the view is loaded and our document isn't nil, then update views. Whew, what a mess. Oh, I bet you guys cannot wait to get through these 2 weeks like I did. Okay, I think that should get us squared away. We're forgetting about one last thing that's kind of important. Can anyone think about what?
Calling update views and the view did load.
Yeah, let's do that. So self.update views. But we went to the work of writing a method that we haven't even used yet. If anyone can remember what that is. Think back to the model controller.
We need logic for updating instead of just adding.
That's the one. So instead of if it's a brand new one, we want to make logic so that if it already exists, we can change it. So, and this isn't super hard. What we'll do here is we'll actually just go ahead and keep those two the same, but we'll make a conditional to do some things that are different. So we'll say if there isn't a document equal to nil, whoa, self.document equals nil. Actually, there's a faster way to write this with exclamation point. If there is no document, we'll go ahead and create one like this. Else, what do we want to do? If there already is a document, what do we
want to do? Call update doc?
Yep, so we'll do our self.document controller and then update doc with our, this needs a document. I'm trying to remember. Oh, yeah, we can just use self.document. Yeah, because the document exists inside the file, hopefully. Self.document, title, and body. All right, someone do the moment of truth. Let's see if all of our things work. Because apparently I can't. So we'll check if we can create a doc, check if we can see it in the table view and delete it, and let's check if we can update one.
I think Alex is our tester for this one.
Oh. She's on it. This is my heart's pounding right now is what's happening, you guys.
I can't update it.
The detail works. Like the detail works. And then, yeah, the update. No.
Well, it updates, but it doesn't pop.
Oh
for
yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Oh, it's because we got to take this.
Because you didn't put pop on that side.
Yeah, pop just needs to be at the end no matter what. We'll just put it outside of the conditionals so that either way it's going to hit pop. Sorry, that was my bad. Try that and see if that'll work. If it does, we're 4 minutes away from stand-up, and I'm feeling great about it.
But yeah, and except for having Jake, we're all here ready for stand-up. So.
Yeah, Jake missed out. I'm about to grill him.
It works. It works.
Oh my gosh, you guys. Oh, I'm so happy.
Oh, Mitchell.
I mean,
You can delete it
I have
too.
total confidence this is going to work. No, I'm just glad because, I mean, we didn't even finish the project today in class. So it was just like, I really wanted to make sure that you guys finished this one today and that you understood it and that you have code to reference in the future.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
thanks, Mitch. This is the first win I've had in
weeks.
a week.
Yep.
I needed this W because I would sit at my computer and just be like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all
Yeah.
it is.
Good.
Oh yeah. Before you sent out that thing, because I was like, yeah, I'm just not even going to work on this. I'm going to go work on my sprint, and I'm pretty sure I'm just going to have to fail this coming sprint. Yeah, I've already told you guys. I was like, a flex is imminent. That's fine. Whatever.
No, you won't.
Yeah.
You won't have to fail this sprint challenge. Tomorrow, I'm going to record an after hours. Whether or not you're there, I'm still going to do one. And it will have everything that you need to know. So just watch it after the fact. If you're with me for it, either or. But you will be fine. Okay.
Don't forget to commit and push.
Yes. Does anyone have any errors still?
Yeah, I slacked in the channel the message.
Okay, cool. Let me check it. Sorry, I've totally not been paying attention at all.
Oh, no, it's cool.
"Wait, I have to hop off here because I have to run to the grocery store and grab a couple of things for dinner." But it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for sticking around, Alex. Have a good night. Select the returning app.
Jake.
It might be a storyboard thing, but I'm not sure. So, because it was a SigBart.
Uncaught exception. Oh. Did you set your table view reuse identifier, or not your identifier, but like, is it the right name as document cell?
Like the table view cell?
Yeah, share your screen. Share your screen really quick.
Sure. Okay. And it's, yeah, I set it as document cell.
Okay, go to your .m file for the table view. And then let's scroll down to the document cell for index path cell. Index path dot row. Interesting. That's weird.
Yeah.
I wonder what's going on with it. Go back. So open up the error again for me so I can see it.
Okay. Let me go here.
The other thing too is that Objective-C errors aren't as like intuitive and helpful as Swift errors are. Oh, I think that init with body. Okay, so init with title body. So go to your .m of your document file. Look at how your init is spelled.
Oh, like that?
And then run it again.
Oh my gosh. That was the same thing the other time too. Okay, let's try it. Yes.
Woo!
Nice. Perfect.
All right. So the text view worked, right? I didn't see that very close, but it worked, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, sweet. It updated the label. Okay, awesome.
Yep.
Okay, awesome, guys. I'm so glad we got through it. My code is online too, so I can always zip up if you need. So like CC, if you're still, I think it's just constraints that you're working on, right?
Yeah, it's just constraint issues.
Okay,
I have the same problem she does. Like my title doesn't even show up on the screen.
that's weird.
Like it's been squished or something. I don't know.
Really pisses me off because I'm like the designer, and it's like it should be laid out all pretty and like available, but it's not.
Oh man. Well, I hope that this project will be a good resource for you guys to come back to, not only this week but next week. Just whenever you're like, I don't remember how to do a segue in Objective-C. I don't remember how to do a did set. You know, we did it today, so it'll be a good reference point for you guys. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Hayden, because he's the
Cool.
boss.